Hello and welcome. I'm your host Comic Knight Zero, coming back with another installment of Cartoon Rewatch, the segment where I walk through an episode of a series I watched when I was younger and see if it still holds up or not. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at
Teamo Supremo!
Hey, you kids have some funky fresh moves.
Teamo Supremo is an American cartoon that ran from 2002 to 2004, created by Phil Walsh, a writer who's worked on other shows from around that time, such as Recess and House of Mouse. The show centers around three kids who become local superheroes, telling the stories of Crandall as Captain Crandall, Brenda as Rope Girl, and Hector as Skate Lad. And so, without further ado, let's get into it. Oh yeah, this is back when cartoons had like a minute-long title sequence. There isn't too much to say about this intro. It gives us brief character introductions for about 5 seconds, and the rest is basically a montage of them fighting villains that will be shown throughout the series while surf rock music plays in the background. This episode was creatively and thought-provokingly titled, In the Beginning. Yes, I know the title card is in Spanish. Do not ask me why. We open in on a cityscape that I assume our heroes live in. I'm not sure if this art style was influenced by that of Ed, Edd n Eddy, or if they had 3-year-olds color these backgrounds because, good lord, they could not stay inside the lines to save their life. During the panoramic shot, we focus on the group of villains we saw in the title sequence inside a giant robot. I'm going to assume they're up to something evil? Like, yeah, we saw that the robot was in the middle of town, but there isn't anything that's indicating danger here. The city isn't on fire, none of the buildings are destroyed, and there isn't any panic amongst the town's citizens. Everything just feels calm and has zero tension. So as far as I'm concerned, these guys are just taking their giant peaceful robot on a stroll through town. But, back inside the robot, we see a guy in a chair about to push a red button, when suddenly, one of our heroes, Captain Crandall, bursts in to stop him.
Not so fast, Baron Blitz! My work here is done.
Is it? There were 5 villains in the opening scene, but you only subdued 4 of them. Calm down there, bud.
My work here is done.
Quadruple kill.
As the crowd cheers, we start hearing the faint sound of an alarm clock, which we soon learn that Crandall's quadruple homicide was nothing but a dream. As he gets ready for the day, we see Crandall putting on what seems to be a makeshift superhero costume from his dream. Although Crandall is kind of a spaz right off the bat, you can certainly tell he's eager to be some kind of superhero or law enforcer, which kind of sets the stage to show how determined he is to be a fighter for good and wants to always do what's right. After he gets dressed, he heads down to the kitchen to say goodbye to his sister Jean, who wants to have like a million different careers, and his Earth Mom. Yes, he calls her Earth Mom because he thinks he's from another planet and wants to be called Captain Crandall, which I'm sure his mom has no idea how to feel about that. And I guess Crandall's going with the origin story similar to Superman's? Is he trying to tell the world that his real parents are dead, and that these are just his Earth parents? There's just so much I want to know, and we're only 2 minutes into this. We then transition to Crandall's school. How do you get in there? There aren't any stairs or anything. Is the circle in the middle just a giant elevator? I'm so confused. Who built this?
Benjamin Franklin's kite was struck by lightning. Yes, Crandall.
Does lightning give him electrical powers?
No. For the last time, Crandall, none of the founding fathers had superpowers.
I kind of like this interaction between Crandall and his teacher, because although we barely know anything about this kid, we clearly get an idea that his obsession with superheroes and superpowers go beyond the confines of his own home. And given his teacher's reaction here, we know that she has these kind of conversations with Crandall just about every day. Shortly after that conversation, the teacher reminds the class to get their permission slip signed for their trip to a museum called the Waxworks of American History.
Attention all school personnel. This is an emergency alert. Turn on your TVs at once.
Oh, the TV's behind the chalkboard? Oh, that's actually pretty cool. So the broadcast begins, and we get an announcement that the city's governor, Governor Kevin, will be holding auditions for superheroes to stop a villain named Baron Blitz, who recently broke out of prison.
Oh dear, one superhero may not be enough to stop Baron Blitz.
Good thinking, Mrs. Willingans. All need help.
I love how his teacher just didn't say a word when Crandall magically teleported to the front of the classroom, declared that he'll fight Baron Blitz, and then ran back to his desk. Like, she didn't even bat an eye. Oh, I guess that's because she had her eyes closed. You know, at first I assumed that that's how she just always looked, but no, she clearly had her eyes open at the start of this classroom scene. So I don't know why she kept them closed now. I guess it's so she wouldn't have to look at Crandall? And you know what? I don't blame her. In an effort to build his team of superheroes, Crandall begins stalking and profiling his classmates. And I gotta say, they're all pretty derpy, so he doesn't really have much to work with here. However, he does eventually find two classmates that he sees potential in, Hector and Brenda.
Students Brenda and Hector, congratulations. You've been picked to join my superhero team. Whoopah!
Good lord, what is with her character design? She looks like a thumb covered with a pink wig and a dress. Though Skater Boy here doesn't look too bad. He's just shaped like an eggplant. Anyways, Brenda is on board, but Hector needs a little more convincing.
I don't feel like it.
But you're the state skateboard champion.
3 years running, so?
So, you have to use your powers to help the less fortunate.
Maybe you're right. I do need a new challenge. I guess helping could be cool.
Oh, is that all it takes? Yes, I too go help the less fortunate when I'm bored and need a new challenge. Doesn't everyone? So after convincing Hector and Brenda to become part of a superhero team, Crandall and the group head off to the governor's office. Here we see an assortment of adult superheroes. Hector begins having his doubts about becoming a superhero himself, feeling like he can't compete with the grown-ups. Which I know isn't groundbreaking dialogue, but it's nice to have at least one person in the group show some awareness of what they're getting into. Because as far as we've seen with Crandall, he has a strong can-do attitude showing us that he's certain he can do anything, which isn't a negative trait for a character to have, but then at that point we at least need someone else to point out the possibility that this group of wannabe superheroes could actually fail, and do it badly. Otherwise, there's no observed challenges for this team to face, and feels like they can just go after any goal they want without having to truly earn it. And so, certain that he's as worthy of a hero as all the adults in the room, Crandall does this.
Oh yeah? Watch this. Barry puts it outside, and he's got a giant robot!
Now, who'd like to audition first?
That would be us.
I like this scene here because 1, it shows that even adult heroes can get scared at the sight of danger, and 2, I like that Crandall used the robot from his dream that we saw in the opening scene as the source of his lie. So given that they're the only ones left in the room, the governor invites the group inside to talk. But to their dismay, he immediately rejects them politely and says that being a superhero is a grown-up job. The group begs him to give them a chance, but Governor Kev isn't budging, although there never seems to be a point where he tries to discourage them. He's just trying to make it clear that he wants these kids to stay safe. And even though this is only our first real interaction with Governor Kevin, we can already tell that he's a real laid-back guy and seems to always have a calm demeanor. But one thing that might stand out to you the most is that he talks like a hip dude from the 70s. Now, when it comes to adult characters in TV shows, it's certainly nothing new for them to use slang and lingo when trying to look cool in front of kids.
You know I gotta gank that youth vote, boy!
But Governor Kevin is a bit different. While he does include a lot of slang and lingo in his dialogue, he doesn't do it to try and appeal to anyone. That's just how he actually talks to people, regardless of who it is. And so, he's not an adult trying to sound cool. He just is cool.
Sounds like the chief. Bummer, man. Someone's robbing the bank.
That's our cue, team. Let's show him our soon-to-be famous window exit.
Before he had a chance to do anything, our young wannabe heroes jump into action. We focus on the police chief catching a horseback criminal that looks like George Washington. Teamo Supremo jumps and executes a somehow well-coordinated attack that had zero planning. They're able to at least slow down the crook, but before they finish the job, the police chief apprehends our young heroes. It's a shame you couldn't do that to the bad guy, huh?
The bad guy's getting away!
The only thing I hate worse than bad guys is meddling kids. Hey, you kids have some funky, fresh moves. And you saved the bank a lot of money, isn't that right, Chief?
I was just congratulating them.
Seeing the chief change his attitude between talking to the kids and the governor is a solid indicator of his great disdain for Teamo Supremo. But he doesn't want Governor Kevin to know that. So moving forward in the series, it would be no surprise to us if the chief continues to display this attitude behind the governor's back, or if he even tries to discredit or sabotage Teamo Supremo whenever he can. Amidst their conversation with the governor, the kids explain how the crook looked like George Washington, and to his slight surprise, the chief agrees with them. With that, the governor asks everyone to be on the lookout for the perp, and officially declares Teamo Supremo to be the city's new heroes. We cut to the next day, I think. I'm not entirely sure how much time has passed between the bank robbery and now, but, Crandall brings his new friends to his house for lunch, during which his mom gets a call from the governor requesting help from Captain Crandall. And like the entire time, his mom just doesn't question a thing. This poor woman just has no idea what's going on. So our heroes rush to downtown to find a jewelry store being robbed by Abraham Lincoln. They're able to subdue him, but weirdly enough, the criminal starts melting.
What are you kids doing with that stolen jewelry?
What up, kids?
Okay, I'm not sure if he's genuinely confused or if he's trying to make them look bad in front of the governor. Because I know he clearly just saw a crook rob a jewelry store.
We caught the robber, but he melted.
Robbers don't melt.
This one did, and he looked like Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, right.
What? What do you mean, yeah, right? Just 5 minutes ago you caught someone who looked like George Washington. Is a crook resembling Abe Lincoln really outside the realm of possibility at this point? Is it truly that hard for you to believe right now? Okay, I'll let the rest of the scene play out so I can talk about it as a whole here.
Kids, maybe you should leave the crime fighting to us grown-ups.
But Governor Kevin...
Beat it, kid, before I haul you in for impersonating a superhero.
Like, I know that I said the chief would try to discredit Teamo Supremo whenever he could, but it just doesn't work here. And like, I get that what the writers were trying to do with this scene. They want something that will hurt the group's confidence so that when the time comes, they'll have a sweet earned victory when they stop the bad guy. Oh, spoiler alert, they catch the bad guys. But the reasoning here is both one, something I don't buy, and two, just doesn't make any sense. You can't have both the governor and the chief think that the kids are crazy when saying they stopped a crook that looked like a president, when it's something you already did just yesterday. This isn't a new encounter for them, so why is the situation suddenly hard to believe? If you wanted to make this argument more convincing, then honestly, I think the better route for the scene is to question the kids when they said that the crook melted. Because then, the chief could reasonably discredit them by saying they're making up excuses for letting the bad guy get away. To which at that point, the governor would then have his doubts about the team. Going as far as even saying that he shouldn't have let a group of kids handle a grown-up's job. It makes for a more reasonable argument and still blends well with the chief's motives. Either way, I think this scene could have been handled better. And now our heroes head home with their confidence at an all-time low. Although this moment doesn't actually last too long, as Crandall soon invites the team to check out his secret hideout. And like, Crandall's mom must be ballin', because this place is pretty huge for being hidden under a doghouse. Plus the place has got everything. Stripper poles, cardboard model of the town... stripper poles?
It's a three-dimensional map of our town. George Washington is hiding somewhere in this town. Maybe Baron Blitz, too. If we just knew where to look.
It's not a problem anymore. Let's go play.
Wow, you gave up pretty easily for someone who wanted to dedicate their life to helping the less fortunate. So before Skate Lad bails out on the team, Crandall's Earth Mom drops down his signed permission slip to the Wax Museum, as first mentioned in the classroom scene. With this reminder, Crandall soon realizes that the presidents were made of wax and came from the Wax Museum, and thus hatches a plan to stop these wax criminals on Monday during their field trip. I really do like how this whole thing comes full circle with the Wax Museum being involved with these heists, because the museum was brought up early on during the classroom scene, but it was more or less mentioned as an afterthought, as the governor's superhero auditions was kind of the main focus in that scene. So up until then, the audience might not have had an idea of where these president doppelgangers were coming from. That, or the audience was too bored to care what was happening in this show. Regardless, once Crandall's Earth Mom mentions the field trip again, it reminds both Crandall and the audience about the Wax Museum, allowing both parties to somewhat figure out this connection at the same time. And granted, it's not like this was a complex mystery or anything, but at the same time, it might not have been a possibility that viewers put much thought into. Before heading off on their mission, Crandall requests to get customized superhero costumes from his sister. And yes, I mean his sister, not his Earth sister. There's a difference, guys, pay attention. With that, our heroes head off to the Wax Museum ready to strike. And apparently Crandall wanted the group to wear these costumes during the field trip.
We'll start our tour with the famous Hall of Presidents.
Try to blend in. We're in an undercover mission.
Bro, what? What do you mean try to blend in? Aren't you immediately blowing your cover by doing this? You couldn't bring a backpack with your costumes to change into later? And even if you did, the only one who would be hard to identify is Rope Curl. What's the point of having a hero costume if you're still going to show your face? Sure, you could say Skate Lad's helmet could possibly make him unrecognizable, but Captain Crandall here has no excuse. Like, he's not even trying to pull off the Clark Kent Superman trick. It's just Crandall in different clothes. Anyways, the class decides to head off to a different area because the Hall of Presidents appears to be closed, thus giving our heroes a chance to sneak off and investigate. Also, I just want to point out the fact that the sign on the door says closed for the season in one scene, but then says open for the next one. I don't know if this is meant to be a joke or if this is an animation error. Anywho, after snooping around for a bit, the group confronts the bad guy, Baron Blitz, who plans to rob the Mint to buy everything he wants.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, Baron!
What's this?
The jig is up, Blitz.
I have nothing to add!
I guarantee you that is the best line we're ever gonna get out of this show. Now that the cat's out of the bag, Teamo Supremo and the Presidents engage in a fight scene. If you even want to call it that. And in no time, they apprehend Baron Blitz. Governor Kevin awards them official superhero badges, and that was Teamo Supremo. So, does this show hold up? No. God, no. Look, I have problems with the show, which in itself doesn't mean it's a bad show. Like, my main problem with the show is that it lacks both detail and motivation, and is just overall kinda boring. Like, was this show trying to be an action comedy? Because I felt like there weren't many attempts at humor here, and of the attempts they did make, I only found one joke to actually be funny. And there were certainly times where I couldn't tell if the show was attempting to tell a joke, or if it's just laziness from the writers, when there's a lack of detail or explanation. Now, I'm not saying this show was trying to be funny, but if it wasn't, then it needed something extra in terms of genre identity, because this show doesn't work if it's trying to purely be an action show. I won't rag on the episode too hard for having quote-unquote action scenes that are either uninteresting or had virtually zero tension to them, because you can tell they were going for a 60s Batman kind of feel for this show. But if we want to keep these references purely animation related, then this show is unironically going for the campy and tongue-in-cheek aesthetic from SpongeBob's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, which in itself is a parody of the 60s Batman series. This is evident from all the lame quips, one-liners, and the use of action bubbles to summarize action scenes, which is fine and all, but I think the show took itself a little too seriously to make that kind of writing work. Or rather, I think it's more or less Crandall who takes himself too seriously, and that's why I don't think he works well with this campy writing style. Plus, he lacks personality, flaws, he's very one-note, and we have absolutely no idea why he loves superheroes so much. This kid is all about superheroing and justice 24/7, without the show ever telling us why. Rope Girl's reasoning for being a hero is because she, allegedly, has always wanted to help the less fortunate, though I have no idea what was stopping her up until now. And Skate Lad's reasoning is because he thought he could use a new challenge. Whatever that means. And although these motivations are either super generic or just a lame excuse, we at least know why these two became superheroes. But what about Crandall? There's nothing the show introduces to us that tells us why Crandall is the way that he is. Why does he call his mom Earth Mom? Why does he wear his makeshift hero costume to school? This episode acts as if it's supposed to be the origin story of all the Teamo Supremo members. So what's the origin story of Captain Crandall? Now, one could say that there wasn't enough time in the episode to go through Crandall's superhero influences, but, believe it or not, you don't need additional runtime to explain this. In fact, one of the great things about storytelling is that you can show a story to an audience without verbally telling them. Hard to believe, I know. Let's say, for example, that Crandall was heavily influenced by superhero comics, which actually makes sense. Then all it would take to let the audience know this is by decorating his room with superhero merchandise. He could have a large poster or bed set with his favorite superhero on it. He could have an entire bookshelf filled to the brim with comic books in the background. He then puts on a mock-up hero costume that seems to be inspired by said hero he has a poster of. He then proceeds downstairs and addresses his mom as Earth Mom, which subtly hints to the audience that Crandall thinks he's some kind of Superman. And that's it. Without verbally mentioning his superhero influences, you have given me an indication of why Crandall wants to be a hero in less than 10 seconds, without adding any additional runtime. Since this is only the first episode, I can only hope that Crandall, as well as the rest of Teamo Supremo, develop into more interesting characters in later episodes of the series, because this pilot episode is kinda rough and is just kinda boring. With that being said, if you'd like for me to review a later episode of the show, or give a review of the series overall, let me know in the comments. Like Code Lyoko, Teamo Supremo is one of those shows I watched when I was younger, but had nothing negative to say about it as I didn't remember much of it. To which then, once I watched it again after all this time, it It wasn't as good as I remembered it to be. But I mean, hey, I recognize that there are just some shows other people themselves think still hold up through the test of time. Though unfortunately, Teamo Supremo was not one of those shows for me. Alright, I don't want this video to get too long, so I think that will be all for today. As always, if you like the video, feel free to leave a thumbs up, as it lets both me and the YouTube algorithm know that you're enjoying the content. And if you want to see more videos like this, feel free to smash that subscribe button, but make sure you get consent before you do. As always, I hope you peeps are having a great day and are staying safe, especially during these troubling times. And with that, I shall see you all next time.